You know how to distinguish currency from trash by the time you're 2 years old. You know what I mean? Think about it. If you're a kid and you're walking down the street, you don't see kids picking up trash, but you see kids picking up $1 that know what that is.
A lot of artists have a hobbyist mindset. They don't have a business mindset.
So now I have original paintings that go for 100 plus K. But back then...
What's good, everyone? Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Web3 experience. Every week we meet with the most innovative minds across culture, business, and technology to discuss how Web3 is unlocking a new era of opportunity for entrepreneurs, businesses, and creators alike.
By speaking with the builders of tomorrow and hearing their unique perspectives on Web3 and the world at large, we aim to break down the many existing societal frameworks that blockchains aim to disrupt.
I'm your host, Mozy.
And I'm Freelance.
And welcome to the show.
What's good, everyone? Welcome to our next episode of the Web3 experience. Today we're here with TRAN PARENT, a special guest. I'm your host, Mozy.
And I'm Freelance.
And welcome to the show. So, TRAN PARENT, thank you for joining us here today. First, maybe just tell a little bit about yourself to our viewers to get a sense of you from a personal standing.
For sure. Well, thanks for having me. Both, very much, both you guys. Born in Virginia. My dad worked for U.S. Steel. I was born in the mountains up in Virginia outside of, right on the border of Kentucky and Virginia. Moved down here when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and then moved to Indiana when I was 8. So kind of like bounced around with my dad's jobs. I was kind of like a military brat, but not in the military with my pops, you know. But was raised in the Midwest, super happy about that, just great people, you know. We didn't have the beach in our backyard or anything like super, super cool, but we had each other, you know, and it was just like a solid place to be brought up. Went to Indiana University, did a study abroad, lived in Europe for 6 months, absolutely fell in love with arts, you know, traveling through Italy and Spain and Greece and just like seeing the Parthenon in Athens for the first time just gives you goosebumps. You just can't even imagine the history of what happened there and just like the foundations and origins of democracy and the art that came out of there and everything. So it's just like kind of fell in love with art then. And then I was one of those guys that like growing up, everybody's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I wanted to be either a professional baseball player or an astronaut. And my vision wasn't like spot on, so the astronaut thing was no. And then I just wasn't that great at baseball. So I was just like, all right, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, being a stockbroker sounds cool. So like I worked for Northwestern Mutual right out of college and realized right away that I was an artist. I realized that I wasn't an office person. I realized I didn't want to be here and do this. So literally did that for like 1 year in my hometown and then told my parents, I was like, I love you guys, but like, I need more. Like, I need something. I need more opportunity, more energy, more something, you know. I needed a lot more blue skies in the wintertime too, because, growing up in Evansville, Indiana, you have 6 months of like gray skies and dead trees and brown fields, and it's just like, it's not conducive for like proper vitamin D production and like creativity and just like all the things that we need the sun for.
I mean, most of the athletes are bred in California or Florida, so
there's a reason. Yeah, right.
More sun, more time.
100%. So I told my girl at the time, I love you, but this, I had just like explored the world and I wanted to see so much more of it. She wanted to get married, have kids. I was like, listen, maybe right person, wrong time kind of thing. I told her, I was like, I love you, but this is not going to work out. And I told my family I loved them, but I literally just drove to South Florida in a 1994 Firebird with T-tops. And I had like, I don't know, it was hilarious. Like on the drive down, I drove by myself like 16 hours throughout. I left 10 o'clock at night on 4/20/2005.
Wow.
Nice.
So, what an origin story.
Yeah, right. And like my clothes, my TV. My TV was one of those big box TVs too. That's what we had back in those days.
Yeah.
Right. And like $700 to my name. That's it. I didn't really know anybody. I just said, I'm just gonna make it work, and just moved down here to live the dream. So.
Awesome, man.
That's how I got here.
That's awesome.
How fitting. We're in Living the Dream studios right now, so that's serendipitous.
All right, I love that.
So you mentioned a little bit about art, right? You got fascinated by art in Europe. So where did your journey take you after that in the art world?
Like most people, I've been painting and drawing since I was a little kid. I probably started on my parents' walls, got yelled at a lot for it and all this and that. But I come from some accomplished artists in my family. My older brother's one of the best artists I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, if I took a selfie of the three of us right now and texted it to him in probably 6 hours with charcoal, he could draw it where it looks more realistic than the photograph. He's unbelievable. My grandmother learned how to oil paint at 51 years old. She's 92 today. She doesn't paint because of her vision now, but like she was a boss painter, like 1 year into her journey. Like we have our paintings all over our house in Indiana. Still, like I come from some artistic talents, but that isn't how I jumped into the art world. because I still understood the importance of business. So like I studied business in college because, actually I studied fine arts and business in college, but I geared more towards the business side of things because I knew that a lot of artists starve because they don't know the business. A lot of super talented artists that could make hundreds of millions of dollars throughout the course of their career, especially nowadays, right? This isn't the 1880s. This isn't Van Gogh times anymore, where you go over your entire life without selling a single piece. Now, art is a multi-billion-dollar industry, even for living artists. I knew that. The problem was that I didn't know how to believe in myself fully at the time to jump into that. So I was like, I'm going to go for business because it's going to allow me to understand the full approach and capabilities and skills I need to one day run a professional hobby, which is creating art, right? So as opposed to going the other way, a lot of artists know art, but they don't know business, so they never make it. I wanted to know business. That way I could just make one day really, really cool art and then obviously financially take off with it. Because that part is important to me. I have big financial goals in my life. I have a lot of people I take care of. I have a lot of people I want to take care of. I have like aspirations to create fun parks that have no charge. Just like people less fortunate than me that just come and just play for free all day, just have fun. I feed them and give them drinks and just literally have the time of their life and just take away their stress for a day. You know what I mean? So like I have those kind of dreams, like do stuff like that for humanity. So anyway, the way that it's a long story, so I'll give you like the condensed version of it. But 15 years ago, I was given a media credential from a guy who started an online publication down here. And I started interviewing like celebrities and artists and all these people that I was completely captivated by. And that was a really cool experience for me because I was getting like an Andrew Carnegie style in-depth like approach and look at their life, where I was asking them, what mistakes did you make? What would you recommend to me to not make those same mistakes? And how can I avoid all these problems on the progress of my growth as an artist? So that was like kind of how I got into it, was like being a journalist. I started being introduced to more and more galleries where I became like a collector of said art. So now like I have like 100 some paintings in my house. I mean, you've been to my place, you know, people call it the museum, right? So now I have this like insane collection of artwork, paintings and drawings and sculptures and all kinds of stuff that I've been collecting for the last 15 years. So that's kind of how I got into I guess the mindset of the art world. But what was like the definitive, like the straw that made me like jump into the game hardcore was about 5 years ago. I got a call from one of my business partners and he said, hey, he goes, I have a guy I want to introduce you to. And he said his name's Arthur J. Williams Jr. He just got out of prison. He did 7 years in prison for counterfeiting $100 bills.
96 Big Face, when the Big Face first came out, he cracked that. Like all 20 security features or whatever in that. He cracked that bill.
How did they catch him?
What's that?
How did they catch him?
So he evaded him for 15 years. The guy's a super genius. He evaded the Secret Service for 15 years. The feds actually never caught him. They got him on RICO charges because his son got caught. His son was counterfeiting 20s. And his son, like these shitty 20s, and his dad was making like gourmet hundreds. You know what I'm saying? Like in court, when the prosecutor held up a real 100 versus a fake 100, he switched the samples. He didn't know which one was which.
Wow. Like
they knew one was counterfeit, but they were so good they didn't know which one was which. So like, dude was a G, right? And he was selling counterfeit currency to the Chicago mob, like the Italians, the Irish, and the Russians, as well as the Chinese triad. So he was selling like $1 million worth of fake for $300K in real. That's how he was making his money. Is he was actually making real cash, but he was selling fake cash. And so anyway, long story short, evaded Secret Service like 15 years. His son got caught with the 20s. He one day, it's kind of a crazy story, like it's a father-son story, right? His son was being a jackass, like in the streets of Chicago, and Artie had to grab his son, like headlock style, like, what are you doing, you know, like quit screwing up your life or whatever. And the cops thought it was two men like fighting, so the cops arrested them both. And that's when they found the son had the pocket full of fake 20s with one like perfect counterfeit 100 in it. And so they linked it to the dad. They never found the printing plates, the presses, the inks, nothing. Wow. They just linked, so in Chicago, that was like where the whole RICO charges came from, which was like organized crime conspiracy where you're like connected to things. Even if there's no like actual evidence against you, they can tie you to things. So that's what happened to Artie. He did 7 years for that. And while he's in prison, he's like, look, I don't ever want to like something like, I don't know if this is accurate, but he told me something like 87% of felons that go to prison, they come out of prison and go back to prison. And he was like, I don't want to be a statistic, right? He didn't want to be part of that 87%. So he was like, what can I do with my life in here? What kind of skills can I hone in here that will allow me to create a, a life of non-crime when I get out? You know what I mean? What can I do to really make this work, right? Because he had kids and, he had a family, right? He had people he had to take care of. And so anyway, long story short, he found out that the prison had an art class, right? And he started like reading Da Vinci manuscripts, Michelangelo manuscripts, like all the ancient masters, Renaissance masters, just all these people from all over the world, different time periods. And then he started drawing and painting currency in prison, right? Like sick pieces. Like his first 4 pieces ever sold for like $25,000 each, like out of prison. Like he walked out of prison with like his paintings.
Wow.
And they sold for like $25K each. So like, yeah, so like, cause by then like Rolling Stones had written about this guy. He had like a book, The Art of Selling Money. It's like a New York Times best-selling book about the guy.
Oh, wow.
He's had like Vice Media presentation, like 1 hour like Vice Media stories. Like very famous artist now, but like former counterfeiter turned famous artist. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So right when he got out of prison is when I got the phone call. And my boy was like, hey, like, I need you to help me. Like, I want you to write an article about this guy and try to blast him and get him out there. So, like, my article led to that Vice 1 hour presentation for him that aired all through the UK and all through America. Got, like, hundreds of millions of views. So it's a big deal for him. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he ended up taking off, like Art Basel taking off, selling tons of pieces, doing big private shows everywhere, doing stuff with Rolls Royce. It was just awesome experience. And he came to me with like coming up with like cool creative ideas like outside of the journalistic world. He was like, hey, do you have any ideas for like this art stuff? Like I want to sell more to people, because a lot of the guys that were buying his stuff were like the old school mob guys. They respected him because he didn't say a single name when he went to jail, right? So all those cats started buying like really expensive, like $50,000, $75,000 paintings from him right when he got out. His prices just took off.
With real money, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly, right? And yeah, that would be kind of weird if they started giving the fake money back. They're like, hey, yeah, you buy, okay, thanks tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
50K, no worries.
yeah. He told me some random funny stories about like his best friend went to Jamaica for his bachelor party. And he gave him like a stack of $5,000 fake money to go spend in Jamaica. But one thing he didn't account for is the humidity in Jamaica. So like dude's in the strip club and like the money's falling apart.
Oh no.
Like I guess the glue didn't work under certain conditions.
Oh,
like
man.
crazy stories this dude's told me. But so anyway, so that's what happened. So like I came up with the idea to do transparent currency art for him. Because I told him, I said, listen, man, I was like, a lot of your art is beautiful, but a lot of it's, you're painting like with dark colors and this and that. I'm like, there's 93 million millennials in America right now that, granted, a lot of them don't have money, but a lot of them do, right? And your art is expensive, but maybe you should go along the lines of creating something more vibrant and fun and, innovative, because I believe in business. It's super important to innovate at all times.
Yeah.
And I started doing research and know artists, especially currency artists, which most people don't know this, but there's like 10,000 money artists in the world. There's 8 billion people, and money is like, we live in an economic planet. It makes sense, but most people don't know that because a lot of these artists aren't big enough to even make a name for themselves on Instagram. Yeah. Like, I'll see some sick money art on Instagram, and they have like 9 followers, and I'm like, how's this person only have 9 followers? You know what I mean? It's like some random dude in Slovenia or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's like 10,000 money artists, but I was literally spent days and days and days researching this, and I found that no one was doing it transparently, where you can see the back of the bill, the front of the bill, and all the hidden security features in one image. And so I gave him the idea, and he didn't want to do it. He was like, oh, it's cool, but it's not my style. I'm like, bro, like, this is your style. Like, you broke the money. You broke the currency. You broke all these security features. This shows it all in one image, like, and it's fun. And you can make, like, different layers of this. You can make giclées. You can make mixed media. You can make true originals. Like, you can sell them at different price points and try to make more money. You came to me with an idea. He used to call me Captain Idea. That's why he came to me with that kind of stuff. So, like, I gave him an idea. He didn't want to run with it. So then I went as far as, like, creating some digital renderings of it to show him. And he's like, dude, that's really sick, but it's not my style. So I asked him his blessing. I was like, bro, listen. I was like, if you're not going to do this, I want to do this. Like, I've been an artist since I was a kid. I've always wanted to be a mainstream artist. Like, I always wanted to take my talents to Miami. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. My dad had a huge currency collection growing up with, so I've always been enthralled by money from all over the globe, different time periods. The art was always super cool on money, on the paper, but the paper was so bland, right? Think about it.
Yeah.
Most of ink you see, right, especially from the old times, is just black. So the artwork is sick, but it's just on like a bland brown piece of paper or a green piece of paper, whatever. So I always wanted to make money as fun as the people that use it, right? Mm-hmm. And so he gave me his blessing, and then I just took off from there. That's kind of how the whole thing started, though. My eureka moment for transparent currency art was for him. So it's me just trying to do a good deed for somebody that excelled into like what has become my life passion, which is leads me to like the metaphor of transparent. It has a deep meaning behind it. It's not just about, you know, I don't in any way, shape, or form try to glamorize money. I think that's the worst thing you could possibly do, right? The reason I do transparent currency art, and my message as an artist is one of truth and transparency within, you know, your business, with your associates, with your loved ones, with yourself, with the central banks, of course. You know, I've been calling out inflation for 4 or 5 years now. You know, when it comes to quantitative easing and fractional reserve lending, what they're providing for us, that's not a good roadmap for humanity. And that's why I believe in so much what you guys are talking about here, which is Web3 and NFTs and cryptocurrencies, decentralized communities where we can self-govern ourselves, kind of like what America was. America is an experiment in self-governance, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not perfect, but it's the best thing we have so far, and you know, it's hard to argue that.
Yeah.
You know, you have people now that try to say this and that about America, but this is the best country in the world. There's thousands of people every single day, if not more, millions of people every single day on wait lists trying to get into this country. There's a reason for that.
100%.
You know, so that's where that whole thing transpired from.
So that's kind of the deeper meaning behind transparent. You touch onto that level of transparency with finance, and I think that's so interesting because that's what got me into cryptocurrency in the first place, was like learning about the banking system and the way that things actually get run. And you know, you put $100,000 in the bank, they're not actually holding a box with your name on it that has $100,000 in it.
That's for sure.
You know, but then they're saying that they've got 100, so they put that on the sheets, and then now they're investing that 100 in something else. And
For sure.
where did that, you know?
Yeah, and they can lend out 10 times that amount.
Yeah.
So by giving 100 grand, they can
Fractional
lend out $1 million. Yeah, that's fractional reserve lending, right? So it's just like, wow, like the biggest Ponzi scheme in history, you know? So
Reminds me of little FTX action this week, huh?
Wow.
As when you were talking about the guys printing money and just making fake money to make real money,
It's
in my head I'm just like, don't say Alameda, don't say FTX, don't say SBF. Oh my God, what a week it's been. What a week it's
Do you
been.
want to give Do you want to give our viewers a recap of kind of just what you're talking about? FTX, Alameda.
Well, yeah, I don't know when this episode's gonna air, but
Right now it is November 11th, and as of this past week,
11/11,
this is
2022.
little market update.
11/11/22. So yeah, I mean, just the whole blow up of Alameda Research and FTX this past week started out people looking at their balance sheets and realizing they printed a lot of their own coin, and that's really where they claimed the majority of their value was, that they used then as collateral, and started taking loans and giving lines of credit and really just over leveraging based on stuff that they kind of printed, and you know, there was not that much of a demand for. There was not much of it circulating in the market.
The top 10 wallets that used that currency was like kind of linked to them, right?
Yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. So
Yeah.
Bankman-Fried, bank run fraud, that's the nickname they're throwing out there.
So this brings us to our next kind of conversation is like centralized entities such as banks and where the name transparent came from. Like how do you feel crypto and Web3 can bring about change and bring more transparency to a world that's very corrupt?
Well, yeah, that's obvious, right? I mean, so obviously not having the ability to create unlimited supply of something, right?
Correct.
Right, we have a finite supply of something, plus everything is publicly verifiable. You know, it's funny, I never thought about this until just now, when we were talking about America being an idea and like this kind of experiment in self-governance. Yeah, but like, you know what's interesting? And I really hope this takes off, but I feel like right now is like 1776 to like 1783. Like this is like the Revolutionary War, like where we're fighting for this, like where America, like where you know our founding fathers were fighting for their freedom versus the Brits, and they didn't get it until 1783 is when America technically won the Revolutionary War and we won our independence, right? We declared it in 1776 when we wrote the breakup letter, right? The Declaration of Independence to the most dangerous man in the world, most powerful man in the world, right? But it took us 7, almost 8 years to win that independence. So I recently had this conversation with Jordan Belfort, the actual real life Wolf of Wall Street. He was talking about, listen, man, we're going to have these series of battles, right? Up until the point where hopefully one day the war is won, But I kind of if you think about it, if we have a government, a government with the American experiment, then we're gonna have to have an American experiment in financial, not literacy, but like legislation and regulation, right? So like this is like us fighting for our stronghold, like our footing in this, in the way that our children are going to be able to self-govern themselves and self-finance themselves, where crypto allows people to become the bank kind of thing. And regardless of what happened with FTX, I'm still super bullish on the market. I mean, I'm not saying like today, this moment right now, am I going to start buying, but very soon, I'm probably going to cop a lot more just because I do believe in crypto long term. I think that, I don't like, I'm not trying to give financial advice, but we could talk about every aspect of crypto asset there is, and I could give you my opinion that I think that NFTs, for example, are kind of like baseball cards. I'm old enough to know that. I'll be 41 in a couple of weeks. I watched baseball cards when I was a kid be worth a fortune. Then I watched them for 2 decades sink to nothing until Michael Jordan's rookie card sold for $750,000. Well, I believe that Mutant Apes and Bored Apes will be worth like floor price 4, 5, 8 million each in 20 years. But I think they're like baseball cards. I think they have some cultural nostalgic like impression now where they're set, And I think a lot of the other NFTs, I don't know if they're going to ever have like tremendous value, but I think that they're going to have some, you know what I mean? Like Takashi's from the Clone X, of course any blue chips, your Doodles, Punks, there's a bunch, of course, so I don't know, but I do believe that NFTs, the art is going to be like trading cards. I believe the NFT technology is here by far to stay. With the technology of SHA, as well as what you have with the ability to digitally authenticate something without any fungibility at all. Come on, man, they're already doing that for real estate
transactions and card titles and all kinds of stuff. I mean, wouldn't you rather have a non-fungible digital title for your property than a piece of paper that
could get lost,
or burn, or a group of people say it's not valid? You also have fraud all the time with that. So anyway, so it's like, for me, I am 100% dead set without a shadow of a doubt that NFT technology is here to stay. A lot of people say, NFT is the picture of the digital monkey. No, the digital monkey is the art. The NFT is what authenticates it. It's completely different. Right? So I think the technology is here to stay. The art, I think, will, like I said, roller coaster over time.
I think that's true for crypto as a whole. I think a lot of people, when things like this happen in the market, they crypto's dead, crypto's dying. Crypto is functioning as it is supposed to, and as it was designed. It's people that are getting affected, and people's accounts that are getting affected, and
it's people behind these issues that arise in crypto, because the only thing holding it back are the people leading it.
And think about what has transpired is that they took deposits and they went out and they lent that money out and they used some of it to trade with, and I mean they did the exact same thing that a traditional bank is able to do.
Exactly.
So this isn't like DeFi is dying, DeFi didn't work. Like this was centralized finance at its purest.
This is human error. This is exactly what we were fighting against, right? With decentralization. It's like set tokenomic systems and operating on like a permissionless frontier, and now we have, like with this issue and a lot of these other insolvent companies now, it's just people digging into the technology and dirtying it and putting their like greed and self-interest in there, and then people do what people do, and then it busts. And now honestly it's great that we're weeding out all of these exchanges that have people who have been tainting with the technology, which is sound, because like in the past few months and even the past year, how many big companies have we seen file trademarks for non-fungible tokens, digital collectibles, their own currencies, like all these reward systems? It's happening every week, and we'll put them up in the video. Like, people are not shying away from crypto, from blockchain, but they're shying away from the swing trades and the volatility right now, because honestly in the world everything is volatile at this moment. Like you just said, you're dating it back to this era, to a period like 200, 300 years ago. So this is a very, very pivotal point in society where we're really trying to escape barriers that have limited, like you were talking about earlier, so much of civilization. Like, so much. So many countries are just completely rid of opportunity and financial literacy because of the government and because of the people that they are forced to look up to.
100%, bro.
I used to date a Cuban, and I am Lebanese, and those are some of the most corrupt governments in the world. We've seen the currencies in both of those countries absolutely shatter. So like if somebody in Lebanon trusted in their bank, they would have lost 90, and I talked about it in the first episode, 90% of their wealth in like 4 days. Crazy.
That was very well said, by the way, and I couldn't agree more. Hyperinflation, I think, is one of the worst things that you could ever experience because it destroys millions of lives. To the wealthy people that are on one end of it, just trying to short something and make money off of a country's currency devaluing, they're like, all right, great, I made $1 billion today. Well, you just made 20 million families, like,
lose out.
Like, you literally just stricken them to poverty. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's so unfair, man, and no human should have the ability to do that. You know, and it all boils down to greed. I mean, even down to FTX, if you see how they're just like recklessly leveraging everything, it's just not cool.
He's in the Bahamas, chilling, sipping a daiquiri, just playing with the livelihoods of millions of people.
And I know this is not easy for people to swallow at first, but karma's going to get every single person that's got coming to them. You know what I mean? Period. I truthfully believe that. So, not saying I wish anything bad upon anybody, but I just know that karma is real.
Yeah, definitely.
And that
big believer.
Yeah. So I wish that we would start to learn as a society, and even the people at the super top of the pyramid that control these mega companies that are controlling these problems. I wish that people would start to be more empathetic and sympathetic to people and care more about, like, hey, how do we really? Because like I always said this before, think about how many people would have made 1,000 times more than they would have made if they just would have went legit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like people with extreme talent, right? I just wish that the bankers were the same way.
Yeah.
If they really did things to really help every single human. Can you imagine how much we would actually want to compensate them for that? You wouldn't need to scam us out of 5 basis points a year or whatever, or devalue our currency. We would want to compensate you for keeping it transparent with us.
Yeah.
So I'm a soulful person. I believe in a grand architect of the universe. Mm-hmm. I ask that energy all the time, like, please make this look more legit, for everybody, like an even playing field,
right? So we're trying to achieve, right? Just a little opportunity for everybody, just a little.
Absolutely.
Like, we're still ruled by the Rothschilds. Like, we're still, like, the average age in Congress and in the House and throughout politics, like 60 to 70. These are people that have lived through a time and like segregation, and a lot of them have gone through segregation and lived through an era where they didn't care about people at all, didn't even view them as people. And now we still have these people ruling and governing legislature and like how society operates until we have like a shift in an age dynamic and like a shift in like a mentality perspective at the top. We're at the hands and at the mercy of these people, and that's why we're trying to change stuff. Because like if we're the pinnacle of society in America and we're still under the rule of like these rich, wealthy families that have controlled much of society and monopolized so many sectors, like think about other countries that have no like even opportunity to audit their own country and understand what's going on. They're just at the mercy of what they're given and what they're told to do, and at that I don't know, I think the pandemic really kind of brought everything to light too and kind of showed you like who's got that mentality and who's more free of speech, I guess, and opportunity and freedom.
Well, I like what Miami's doing, right? They're having like an experiment. They've got the Miami coin. They're being very receptive and actually going out and trying to get people that are interested in these new technologies and new ways of doing things, getting them to come and like come build here, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you give that 5, 10 years, 20 years down the road, how different will a city like Miami look, and what kind of innovations will come from that, as opposed to somewhere that's a little bit more limiting towards that or doesn't allow it to prosper. And I think that's what we need at a federal level as well, that allows the innovation to continue without stifling it. I mean, that's the same kind of thing that happened with the .com bubble, right?
Sure.
So,
shifting into this more decentralized approach of society, like we're still in Web 2.5, I would say, with all these exchanges going down and like the dependency on third parties, like just for data storage sometimes and stuff like that. Where do we see, or how long until we see a fully decentralized Web 3 society where we don't have to depend on third parties and stuff like that?
I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball for you. You know, like when it comes to the specific time period, I think that we'll see a true 3.0 sometime before the year 2040. But that's also 20 years away, 18 years away. Like, people don't want to hear that. Yeah. You know, people want to see it, you know, but things take time, man. Humans are slow. I hate to say it. We're slow to adapt. Yeah. You know? I've kind of always had one of those, like, foresightable kind of minds. Like, luckily. Yeah. One of the main reasons I got into crypto in 2017. Now, listen, I've been truly foresightable mind, obviously, you know, 2008, 2011, 2013, but 2017 wasn't too bad. I started buying Bitcoin at 1,500. Started buying Ethereum at like $90, you know what I mean, Litecoin 35, and I bought like 20 altcoins off the original Chinese Binance. You know,
back in the day, the one we got kicked off of.
Yeah. Started buying Ripple for like, before it was even a penny, I believe. So, you know what I mean, I can't really remember, but I bought just a bunch of stuff. And but there's two main reasons, which leads into like my very first Bitcoin pieces I ever made, like my mixed media Bitcoin paintings, my giclées, all that. My first ever Bitcoin piece was called "The Evolution of Money," which represents 200,000 years of human history in one single piece of art. So the exterior represents the bartering system, which was like our first form of currency, right? Go back to ancient Lebanon and say like, hey, I have a camel, you have a daughter. Like, I want a wife, you want a camel. Yeah. Or I have shelter, you have weapons. Like, whatever, you know. The bartering system was how that was the first form of currency, right? I believe love is like the most valuable commodity, but like, you know, like as far as a currency, like bartering is it. Yep. So like the exterior of the piece represents that, and then you have like a white rim around this Bitcoin. That is, the white represents salt, because in ancient Judea specifically, right? Remember the King Solomon gold mining, or the salt mining days from the Dead Sea? Salt was worth more than its weight in gold, right? They used it to preserve food. They used it for electrolytes. They used it for all sorts of different things. You can clean wounds. I mean, salt was where it was at for a long time. The bottom of the coin, so it looks like three-dimensional, is has like black, which represents oil, of course, which has been one of our biggest commodities since, you know. And then when you get into the coin itself, it has multi-layers of like whites and golds and blacks, and it's very three-dimensional and trippy looking. And exterior represents like gold, silver, platinum, and then it gets into paper currency, credit card, and then crypto is the Bitcoin in the middle. Cool. So it's like bartering to blockchain in like 200,000 years. So that was my first ever Bitcoin piece, and what that represents essentially, in my mind, is like the mindset I had towards getting into crypto. Yes, I saw major flaws, especially after 2008. I mean, you could ask a dog what its idea of American financial policy was after 2008, and the dog would like rough you to like, no, get out of it, right? It was, everybody knew that we had serious complications and flaws in our system, right? So that was number one. Number two, I knew that money had to evolve. Okay, that's why I call it the evolution of money, because I knew that money had to evolve, just like everything else, right? Art evolves, people evolve, right? Species evolve, everything evolves. Language evolves, food evolves, everything evolves. Why would money not evolve? Money is, we live in an economic planet. You know what currency is? You know how to distinguish currency from trash by the time you're 2 years old. You know what I mean? Think about it. If you're a kid and you're walking down the street, you don't see kids picking up trash, but you see kids picking up $1. They know what that is. It's so strange to me, right?
Parents use it to exchange for other goods.
Right. They see that it has value of some sort. They see that it's interactable.
They see their parents throw the trash away.
Yeah. So you know, right. And they still, right, and they keep that bill. So for me, it was like, surely this currency has to evolve. So that's what I was like, I should really take a deeper look into crypto, because I was from the old school, thought that even though I knew our financial system was messed up, I still trusted in guys like Warren Buffett, right? And, you know, in every day you look up his thoughts and Charlie Munger's thoughts on, you know, the most successful investor of all time, saying, no, Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme, don't buy into it, don't do this, it's only worth what the next guy's willing to pay. But it's totally a store of value. Yeah. And I truthfully believe, did you guys see the clip? Now, that I'm not saying that this is in any way, shape, or form the future, but I think it's funny. You guys ever see like how like Simpsons drip, like it's funny how like you watch old episodes of The Simpsons and you see that they drip fed us the future, right? In like tons of movies and stuff like that. I mean, you just spend 10 seconds Googling it, you'll see. Like I'm not making this up. It's not a conspiracy. Like they did it.
They had Trump as president like years ago.
25 years before he even ran. Yeah, like crazy stuff. So, or 20 years before he ran or whatever. But in the Zac Efron new movie called Gold, it looks like, I only saw one clip, but it looks like a kind of post-apocalyptic kind of Mad Max like looking world. He's in the car driving, and there's like this British woman on the news, and she's like, "And Bitcoin trading at 1.25 million." Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
like, okay.
Uh-huh.
So I always knew, like, because there's a finite amount of them,
Yeah.
right? I always knew that Bitcoin. See, right now you have, 500,000, 3/4 I don't know the exact number.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what it was several years ago, but like now I'm not sure exactly how many people globally out of 8+ billion people own Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But when you have billions and billions and billions of people trying to get their hands on Bitcoin, that's where you're going to see a single Bitcoin become 100,000, 500,000, $1 million. And then I do believe that will be our future 100%.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying Bitcoin is a truly decentralized token, right? I'm not saying that's going to be the token that takes over everything that we have. I think it's going to be more of a store of value, more of a kind of a gold thing. I believe XRP to be more usable.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like how their residual royalties and perpetuity are actually enforced at the protocol level.
Mm.
So right now, a lot of people think, at least what I'm told, at least the way that I do my research, what I'm explained,
Mm-hmm.
and what I think is that OpenSea is the entity that is enforcing
They
the
are.
royalties
Yeah,
now.
it's
It's not actually
platforms.
built into the Ethereum smart contracts,
Right.
right? It says it, but it's not like, the whole point of a smart contract is it's self-automated.
Yeah.
It does it for you. But apparently it's not. Apparently it's OpenSea that's doing that.
Right. Right.
Whereas I'm actually getting ready to do a drop on XRP right now with Zion Clark. Zion is he's a world record holder. He's a African American guy without legs. He's
Mhm.
always like super viral on social
I
media.
think,
Yeah.
I think I could put a name to that face.
Yeah, he's
Face
like
to that name.
all American wrestler.
Was
like
he out in Seattle as well?
yeah,
I
he
see
was.
that?
He
Yeah,
spoke on my
that's
panel.
right.
I met his manager, and then he asked me to be the artist behind their drop.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Zion was born without legs, and super remarkable, super fun, cool, caring, laughable, like greatest dude.
Yeah.
He was born without legs. His dad abandoned him, and his mom didn't have any money to take care of him, so he was put into the foster care system. He had a really terrible childhood, but he didn't let it break him. His whole thing is like no excuses, right? And you don't need legs to like leave, footprints on the earth. You know what I mean? And so he just he won first mentally, which is what you have to do in life. No matter what you do, no matter who you are, no matter what is going on, you have to win mentally, right? It's all about
Absolutely.
perspective. Everything is about perspective.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he wants to, and I think this is so beautiful, he wants to reform the Foster Care Act with the proceeds from this XRP drop. So he asked me to be the artist behind it.
That's awesome.
And so we're about halfway done right now. We're about 1,000 images in,
Wow.
and cannot wait for that. You know what I mean? It's going to be
I'm
so.
excited.
Thank you, bro. So, one of the things that I am really excited about that is I do believe that XRP will be the financial token globally for e-commerce, for like global commerce. Ethereum, I'm not sure. I'm really not.
Yeah.
I think it has a strong staple in society. It's got that nostalgic footprint. It's got some great technology. I even know some guys who are programmers for the Ethereum Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where it's going to stand in the future versus things like XRP and Avalanche and Solana and
Yeah.
other tokens. So I don't know. You guys,
So, going back to what you said about Bitcoin being its most valuable, in 20 years or so, like, it's just
or
bringing us,
sooner.
yeah, or sooner, but
Yeah.
bringing us back to the subject of supply and demand and how the government kind of shifted away from that once the dollar stopped being backed by gold and by actual assets, and then it was just at the word of the government. But Bitcoin has a fixed amount of supply, so that when the last token is minted, then all of the supply is out and the chain can't produce any more Bitcoin. So
Correct.
then the value should be at
Well,
its highest point, correct?
Mathematically, it'll never be fully produced.
Yeah,
'cause
it mines at a small
half,
increment.
and then
over-
what's half of a half is a quarter.
We do have
and
a
half
final
is-
end date, though, don't we?
It's a long way away, isn't it?
Is it? Is there a final end?
I think so. I think there is.
You can go half infinitesimally
No, you can.
small times. and
Yeah, you're right.
Bitcoin is fungible.
So what is
Yeah,
it?
look
When
at
it gets
high.
to like
So-
the last token, it starts being halved and halved and halved and halved
Well,
forever?
you'd have to do the math. Is it going to be the last one token, or would it be 3 to 1.5? I don't know the exact numbers, but just theoretically, if something is being cut in half
Mm-hmm.
in perpetuity, it's never going to hit 0.
but
it's just going to be smaller and smaller and smaller, right?
But the final mine, it may be an entire Bitcoin though, instead of half.
Look at it.
Right?
Put it on the screen.
When I first,
it says 28,140.
yeah,
Okay.
when I first looked
I
at
won't
it,
be here.
So we're gonna be on a different planet when Bitcoin.
I'll be on Mars at that point.
Yeah, where are we
maybe.
gonna?
We'll be up there with Elon.
We'll be
chilling.
with Elon, driving cyber ships.
that's awesome. That's so awesome.
I
The
have a
future's
Q-
here.
I have a QR code right on my windowsill. You could just scan and pay.
Imagine if Dogecoin is the currency for Mars.
Oh,
Can you imagine?
I
Can you,
thought-
like, seriously?
Yeah.
Then we're living in a
That's how.
simulation.
Oof.
Then we
Wish
are.
on Mars.
So you talked about artist royalties. What do you think about platforms and, like you said, XRP apparently has, I didn't know this, had royalties at the contractual level. Ethereum does not. Royalties on Ethereum and I believe on
So
Solana.
it's hard because, I mean, I know because I have a token background before NFTs, and it's like you can program that into your token's contract. 5% of every time there's a transaction that it's traded for an amount of 5% of that Ethereum is going to this original developer wallet or whatever. You can do that in the smart. You can't take off 5% of the NFT every time it's sold, and if there's like they're working on solutions, right? I was reading one about this allow lists of like trading.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that? But yeah, it's tough. I mean, right now it's like you're asking the protocols, like you said, OpenSea is enforcing them, and then you've got all these other new protocols that come out, and they're trying to get customers from OpenSea. So what do? They don't worry, there's no royalties over here. Like, do you think that's right? Do you think it's right for the artists to be able to ask for the royalties? Like, where's your thought? Because obviously you're creative and it is a business, as we spoke about earlier, right?
I mean, I think at that point it boils down to ethics of the buyer and the seller. If are they willing to give the artists, I mean, think about how many, hundreds if not thousands of years of human history people have been buying artists' work,
Sure.
reselling, not giving the artist anything at all.
Yep.
Well,
That's what brought a lot of artists to NFTs was that it provided them
100%.
a secondary market to make royalties in perpetuity.
100%.
But in perpetuity, you kind of would think that it's at the contract level, but it wasn't. Now, we've seen Magic Eden shift to 0% royalties. I mean, X2Y2 always had an option for 0% royalties. OpenSea just announced after December they're going to be slowly transitioning to optional royalties, just like Magic Eden. So where, like you were saying, they could pay the royalties or not. It's like up to them and up to their ethical code. But I mean, if people are going to have the option and not pay an extra X amount, like a couple $1,000s on a big purchase, they're not going to do it. I don't think people are that ethical to tip anonymously at that point. It's one thing to tip like physically and have a face-to-face interaction and then be a dick and not leave a tip, but if you don't ever meet an artist and you're just buying a piece of art, are you really going to feel that ethically inclined to give them 7.5% more?
I will bring up all right, it's not a percentage, but I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy. Stand-up show that they just put out on not Netflix, on YouTube, right? Completely free, self-financed, self-produced, self-shot, all that. Puts it up on YouTube completely free, and he has this whole like story written in the description about starting out when they were younger. They would go and they would perform for free, and then he would stand outside of the club, and he'd have like a bucket, a tip jar basically, and interact with everyone and. Hey, if you guys enjoyed the show, like, come meet me out front. I do this for free, but if you guys want to support me, I'll have a tip jar. And he said that it motivated him to do really well on his sets, make sure everyone enjoyed the show and wanted to give him a tip. But he made the analogy then to this is what we're doing now in the digital world. This is my digital tip jar. Like, you can choose to support this show or you can choose not to. Mm-hmm. It's up to you. It's here on YouTube free already. You can watch it. But I just know that, I judge myself based on what I can get out of it. And, he goes into this whole thing. But I thought it was a real interesting perspective. And the optional royalty option, I like it. But it means, I think, as an artist, you have to maybe push harder to connect with your fans and make them actual fans of your work more than just like, oh, I'm a fan of flipping NFTs for a little bit of profit.
100%.
Right?
100%. Man, one of the things I love the most about blockchain cryptocurrency technology is full transparency.
Yep.
Now I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment, though. If we want full transparency, I'm talking about full transparency from the governments all the way down to people, right? For a long time, now this is going to make me sound like a conspiracy theorist, but for a long time I thought that Bitcoin was actually like a CIA psychological operation. Because I was like, well, the government hates that people are always evading taxes, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens if you're in a cashless society, right, where everything is 100% verifiable by the blockchain? Everything, 100% of transactions. It's really no more tax evasion unless you get super creative with like trusts and all these other things that are, I guess, legal within like certain loopholes of the tax code, right? But for the most part, like, let's say somebody wants to come in and let's say somebody wants to buy, that poster of that ape for $100,000 cash. Mm-hmm. Well, that government never finds out about that $100,000 cash transaction, right?
Right.
But everybody said Bitcoin was the dirtiest thing, but cash is the number one illegal, illicit currency that's used ever by the mob, like you're saying, even fake money.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, so if you're talking about, like, the future I envision is people, it's like up and down. People hate it, and it's got pros and cons, right? But the future I envision is where, like, all politics, like all the money behind politics, every single cent is all done on the blockchain.
Yep.
So we don't have to worry about, like,
taxpayer money.
$3.2 trillion missing, like what happened 20 years ago, just like disappeared.
With a T.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Dude, Lori Lightfoot just lost $1.2 billion in Chicago. This is 2022. How do you lose over $1 billion? You don't lose it. It gets spent in ways that you don't agree with. So we lost it. Yeah. Well, so, so essentially, you see what I mean? Like, if the government's going to have every one of their transactions documented, then they're going to want every one of our transactions documented, which is, look, again, pros and cons. Yeah. But that's a future that we will see. We'll live in that future.
It's just going to come to, like, criteria, like how big is your company, how much money you pull in. I think from a government standpoint, if you want to know what your taxpayer money is, you have public sectors, like every governmental organization has their own wallet that's completely, gnosis, like it's their wallet and they can't change it, right? And the taxpayer money goes straight into those wallets, so you could see every single time where your money's going. I think that's something, like, if it's like that, you can't then want to know what every privatized business is doing in their wallet. I feel like that's kind of unattainable. But when you get to a certain point in business, just like in the stock market or raising funds, when you get to a certain amount of money being used or activated, like, then there's got to be some sort of regulatory people to come in, and it doesn't have to be the government that we have now. Maybe we have some sort of, decentralized, centralized entity that can verify certain shit, like you said, in the future, certifications and houses and deeds and these secondary markets are all going to be different companies that have privatized accounts that are decentralized now. But like you said, like in 20 years, I mean, they already have haptic suits now. Ready Player One was a warning. Mm-hmm. It was a warning to society. It's like, if you guys, like, lose that connection to Earth and your physical being, and you guys just completely become savages who run on these CBDCs and live in cubicles on top of each other and play a centralized game with one currency that matters, that's a scary society.
You're not kidding around. Even if we do get into a society where it is a Ready Player One, that try your best to play that, like, less than an hour a day, maybe 2 hours a day at most, but go outside, get exercise, get sunlight, eat proper food, like, connect with humans on a social basis. Like, these are important things, because listen, your health is the true wealth. Okay, you become sick, you will pay every single thing that you own, every single thing, to get your health back. That's right. Okay, I promise you, these kids who don't know any better now, they're going to be playing these video games. They're going to get addicted to so many different things. The dopamine responses from getting digital coins in this fake world, being able to buy your new skin, and, all these other things, like meeting hot girls in the Matrix and stuff. It's like, none of it's real. No. And that's not what's, like, the human brain and the human body and physiology didn't evolve over millions and hundreds of millions and billions of years to rapidly progress into a Ready Player One simulation. So
if anybody takes anything from this entire conversation, it is the health of your mindset and your physiology to make sure you don't get caught in the matrix like that. You cannot. It'll be so detrimental to your health, and you'll be praying for that health back when you don't have it anymore. So
if you're gonna get digital, build content. Just don't become a consumer and just sit and consume. And between that and like the food that society is given and like the shit that they put in there, it's like age expectancy is going to deteriorate. And we didn't evolve as humans sitting at a computer watching bullshit shows on TV. It was like getting up, being active, letting your brain flow and create new ideas and
100%.
innovate and stuff like that.
Every day was a new adventure. Everything you ate was completely non-processed. There wasn't toxins environmentally, unless it was natural toxins, like a volcano exploded 500 miles away, and you're inhaling some dust or something. There weren't microplastics in all the oceans and preservatives in all the food, and everything wasn't processed with seed oils and all this processed sugars and things that are just giving us.
Those are bad.
Yeah, man. Like I try to promote. Like it's funny. If you follow me on social media, I literally post art, health stuff, and mental spirituality stuff, and then try to post some funny stuff because I'm a big fan of stand-up as well. But that's it. That is it, and that's all I will consume myself.
Yeah.
If you catch me watching TV, it is educational programming. It's science. It's history documentaries. It is something that is either going to make me laugh or make me smart. Yeah. I will not watch the Kardashians. I will not watch the Kardashians. I don't believe in brain-draining, soul-sucking, like time-wasting garbage that we weren't here to do. We were here to be inspired and inspired, period. We weren't here to just waste time. You need to value every second of your life.
I feel bad for people who idolize. I don't want to like label anything, but like the hip hop shouldn't be idolized. I mean, idolize intellectuals, idolize people who are building and innovating. Don't idolize auto-tune and like get so consumed where your life is revolved around that. You kind of have to get a little taste of everything in society.
I don't disagree with all that. I will tell you this though, when it comes to raw lyrics, like one of the reasons,
I love music. Don't get me wrong.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Then maybe I misunderstood.
J. Cole at the Heat game last night. Big fan.
Yeah, cool. Cool. But like Posty, for example, Post Malone is my favorite musician. Okay, and there's a reason he's my favorite musician. He's real. His lyrics, he's not afraid to admit anything. He'll tell you his entire life story of how he had his heart broken 20 times. Yep. Right? How he's lived in a car. How life wasn't easy for him, but he didn't give up. Yeah. Worked so hard, forgot how to vacation. Like that's one of my favorite lines. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I Fall Apart, talking about his heart just being ripped out of his chest, but him moving on and growing from that experience. Like, so I told him when I met him, I was like, listen, it's funny that you just did the Last Kiss Pearl Jam cover, which is a cover of a cover because Pearl Jam did it, but Posty just did that cover that Pearl Jam made really famous. And I said, it's crazy that you just did that because I've been saying for years that I always called you the 21st century Eddie Vedder. Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam was like the most real, raw storyteller of all time. And he talks about his dad beating him and his troubles as a kid, his parents and all these problems. And he sung about those things when it was kind of taboo to talk about those things, when everybody else was rapping about fun stuff or this and that, and or singing about these things. So, I don't know. I think that like the content, just like intent with your words and your emotions when you're talking to people, what your intent is. Like, do you have intent to hurt someone? If you don't have an intent to hurt someone, then try to fully understand what they're saying. Yeah. Right? If somebody's just being an asshole, then then let's make sure that we can either convert the perspective of this person, or let's block our energy from them. Right? Mm-hmm. But things like Molly Percocet. Like I heard that song and I was devastated because these kids think that's cool, right? That's
played
at
cool. Middle school dances.
It's not cool. It's like it's awful. Yeah. It's absolutely awful, right? I mean, kids should be educated that like, hey, listen, you may experiment with drugs one day. They're fun, but if you're going to do them, you must do them in a safe manner. Otherwise, you will die at 17 years old, 23 years old, 28 years old. Like, I wish that people would just talk to kids like they were adults. Yeah. In a way, just teach them the real life things, Yeah. And so like I'm cool with hip hop as long as the lyrics don't send negative messages to young ears. Sure. Mm-hmm. By the time I started really getting like I guess blasted with tons of content daily when social media became a thing, I was already in my 20s, I was already capable of rational thought and complex thinking. A lot of kids that their brains, like I said, are still malleable. They're halfway formed.
Kids are growing up on TikTok.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a problem.
And you know how smart the Chinese are.
Oh yeah.
And you know what they're doing with TikTok.
An app that's controlled the U.S., made by China.
Being showed.
Well, yeah, they're teaching their children, right?
Oh, it's in
science, education, engineering, right? They're making their children super geniuses at a very early age, and they're making our kids professional dancers and stuff like that. Which there's nothing wrong with dancing, but we can't have. No, there's really.
There is if you're not good at dancing.
Well, no, you can get good at. Listen, dancing is a profession. It will be always a profession, but not everybody. There's never going to be some ensemble of like where somebody needs to pay 14 million dancers at all times for a show.
And
so
you can't do the same 12 moves and different patterns to every song.
Yeah, I want people to like have fun with their life and dance if it makes you happy.
Make your own dance
but like
moves.
you're not going to be able to be a professional dancer like these Chinese kids are going to be professional engineers and scientists.
Correct.
So when you have purposeful, you know, look, maybe this is karma. Look, I hate to say it because I love this country very much. It's Veterans Day. I'm one of the biggest patriots you'll ever meet in your entire life. Thank God to our military. Thank God to our veterans.
100%.
But some of the people that have ran parts of our military over time have been very corrupted people. Just like there's bad apples and everything.
Yep.
Right? So you ever heard of the opium wars in China? Mm-hmm. Where America and the UK destroyed China's economy and their health of their people by implementing opium dens all through their country. Turned like millions of people into heroin addicts. And then just kind of came in and just took over Hong Kong, like, you know, almost no opposition, you know, resistance. So maybe this is China's way of getting back at us in a 21st century kind of, you know, 21st century military, you know, / political / you know, just warfare. Yeah. You know, so like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I believe in karma. Maybe this is our karma, you know, but doesn't mean we're not smart enough to help educate these kids to the fact. It's all about education. Everything is about education, transparency, getting down to the root of everything, and giving people the real facts.
Yep.
That's why we started this podcast.
You know,
try to educate people, teach them different angles, different insights about crypto, Web3, how money works, all these things.
100%. I love that. I love that. Don't stop ever. Do this every single day, forever, and you guys will blow this thing up, and people will listen, and you'll change the world. Trust me.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Like we were talking about before this even started. I mean, Joe Rogan had to start somewhere. We should actually look up his first podcast.
That would be interesting.
And I bet it looks like an 8-bit Nintendo game. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like it's, you know what I mean? Like you got to start somewhere. But you guys are obviously past, you know, that already. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just don't give up, man.
Oh yeah.
More and more people will just.
The more perspectives we could get in here to speak in the same light that you have, just be real, authentic. Like just talk about real shit, how the world works. Not some Logan Paul impulsive like podcast just chopping up bullshit. Like talk about stuff that matters. I'm not saying that they don't talk about stuff. I just don't listen that much, but I don't know. I mean, just more centered on getting people, providing opportunities and to educate and provide some knowledge. What tips would you give to an artist? Young artist. Go ahead.
I was gonna bring it back. So earlier you were talking about some of the questions you would ask people. So I was gonna ask the same thing. If someone wants to get into the art world or the business of art or maybe even into NFTs or crypto, I mean, what kind of mistakes have you made? What kind of mistakes would you look out for if you were beginning just now? And what does that look like to you? Like, how would you advise someone?
That's a great question. I was able to utilize all the questions I had asked previously to avoid a lot of problems. So thank God. I haven't incurred that many problems in my career, thank God. But I remember them from the questions I asked, right? Mm-hmm. So I will say this, the things that have helped me become the artist that I am today and achieve the success that I have is, number one, believing in yourself. Like we were talking about earlier. You have to 1,000% believe in yourself and your product, because if you don't believe in your brand and value your brand, no one else will either, right? It's like sometimes I see the most ridiculous artists, 16 by 20, small painting this big, sick, looks like it has 200 hours in it. I'm like, how much is this? They're like $300. I'm like, I would have given you 20 grand for this. Why do you value your art at $300? What's going on in your mind that you think this is $300? This is a sick piece of art with immense talent. This is the problem. A lot of artists have a hobbyist mindset. They don't have a business mindset, right? It took me a long time to get that, right? Because I was born with an artist's mind, right? But, working with my father growing up, seeing how he conducted business, working alongside him, and then obviously what I did post-college, various industries, I learned business, right? Plus, I'm self-taught. I listen to, I don't know, I can't tell you how many hours a day, at least probably 2 hours a day. I listen to business podcasts, people way smarter than me, right? And I just try to absorb as much as I possibly can from guys like Tom, we were talking about, Patrick Bet-David. I mean, there's so many people that I admire that give us real financial literacy, right? So, for me, it's more along the lines of believing in yourself, coming to market with a product that you're proud of, that you don't skimp on cost or skimp on time. If a piece isn't done, do not show it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you could, because listen, even if you're halfway done with a piece and the biggest show of the year comes up, you can always show it and work on it while you're there and be like, hey, look, it's an in-progress piece. You can see half of it's done. You can see my skill level. I'm just working on, you know what I mean? So like, if you are going to show something that's not done, make sure that you explain it, that it's not done, right? But like, when I first started and I noticed that every artist out there was doing their giclées on canvas, which is beautiful, but it's by far the least expensive and least fun way to show your art for a giclée, right? Because some of my images were digital, of course, right? I can obviously paint. I have mixed media originals. You know, my first mixed media original ever sold for like $22,000 out of a gallery. My first one.
Wow.
So that set my gallery price point right off the bat.
Yeah.
You know, and that was almost 5 years ago. So they've gone up tremendously since then, you know? So now I have original paintings that go for 100 plus K. But back then, it was just like, I created something that, kind of like what I was telling you about the Too Short thing, where I asked him how he made it, and he just dropped off demo CDs in like music executives' offices, and they're like, we don't want this, and he's like, yeah, you do. And they're like, no, we don't want this. He's like, yeah, you do. And like literally, that's how Too Short made it. He just would not take no for an answer, and then like literally would come back and be like, what'd you guys think? And they're like, we actually listened to it and we like it. Like that kind of stuff, and then he blew up and made millions of dollars in the 90s, which would be equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars now, probably, you know? And so, anyway, he believed in his product, and he came with a quality, consistent thing that met his brand and what his image was, right? And so I would say that. For me, I didn't want to just take my digital images and just print them on canvas like everybody else. My giclées were on archival metallic paper and this like Fuji crystal halide metallic polymers that shine and shimmer and do this crazy stuff with your eyes. Museum quality fine art acrylic, glare free, press mounted on aircraft aluminum, like recess mounted on the wall, super modern. That was my giclée. Most famous artists were selling giclées for like $200-300. I started selling mine for like $4 or $5 grand. Started selling mine for $4 or $5 grand because people could see the value. It's a 500-year shelf life. The product's gonna last forever. It's gonna be willed down to your family. You know what I mean? Like your kids are gonna have this. Like, so I valued my art. That was one of the things I learned in business is build value. Now don't do it through a lie. Do it transparently. Create a product that's gonna last forever. That's gonna look amazing. That people are gonna rave over. It's gonna be, you know, a conversation starter when somebody walks in here. Oh, dude, that's sick. What is that? You know? Tell me about it, you know? And I tell my collectors too, listen, I have multi-billionaire collectors, super famous people, A-list celebrities, hedge fund managers. I'm like, you're not putting this black and gold $100 bill in your office of your hedge fund to glamorize money. This is about truth and transparency. I want you to keep it real. Because when you know about an insider trade and you move on it, and you short a stock or do something where you're making $400 million in a day, the way the stock market works, and they know this, is one man's loss is another man's gain, right? So if they make $400 million the shady way, they just stole $400 million from unknown farmers, engineers, workers, families, fathers, mothers, the people working very hard, 401ks, all these things, right?
Pension funds.
Yeah, pension funds, right. So I try to preach that on a face-to-face basis with some of the world's most powerful people that I sit in front of.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I try.
It's important.
I always say don't ever underestimate the power of planting a seed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm going to change the world overnight, neither are we, right? But like together, hopefully we can start to help people adopt the mindset of like truthfully helping everyone else.
Yeah.
You know? So I know how I'd do it if I was in charge of everything.
Let's hear it.
Ooh. Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, I mean, like from a 36,000 foot view, like right off the bat, I would, and there's a lot of people that would shoot me for this, right? But I know for a fact we have unlimited free energy. Like I know we have technology out there that can produce 100% unlimited free energy. So this would destroy the oil industry and the coal industry, which I would be shot instantly, right? but yeah, I would like create clean free energy for everybody, right? I would create like the proper food pyramid, right? Which is healthy fats, no processed sugars, no seed oils, no preservatives.
Yeah.
Preservatives are designed to kill bacteria. Problem is when you eat it, the preservative doesn't know when to stop eating, so it eats your microbiome, which is the foundation of your immune system, right? It's why we have, 40,
obesity,
50%.
illness.
Dude, it's crazy. There's like 1,000 plus. No, it's 10,000 plus autoimmune disorders now. Like 10,000 plus autoimmune disorders. 100 years ago, we didn't even have them. They didn't
you
exist.
look at the rise of all these illnesses
Crazy.
and detriments, and it's like our diets haven't changed that much, but like the ingredients in what we're eating has changed immensely, and all of this negative outcomes have just
And the difference between Europe and here is so. I was just in Italy, and like just for instance, ketchup in Europe is made from actual tomatoes. Like,
Yeah.
Here, it's
There's 37
tomato
ingredients.
High fructose corn syrup, all that stuff our bodies didn't know what to do
it's
with.
just shit, and it's just those small things that make us obese and let I go to Italy and eat my face off and lose 4 pounds.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. GMOs are completely illegal there.
Yep.
They're illegal.
yeah,
Like that's one of the things I
because
love
they care about the
Europe.
citizens' health.
Well, yeah, but it seems like they do, right? They tax them higher, but they do seem like they care about their health more.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a give and
There's
a
so
take
many
thing.
give and takes. Yeah.
But so I guess to answer your question, what I would do is I would try to level the playing field globally for every single citizen, right? I would give them with education.
Yeah.
Hey, here's what we do know, 21st century nutrition. This is what we know about vitamin D production. This is what we know about the health of your, grass-fed over corn-fed. Corn and soy-fed beef, cows, sheep, chickens. They have super high omega-6 acids they eat a non-species appropriate diet.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to eat those things in the first place. They never evolved in history throughout the course of the evolution to eat those things, right? So when we eat them, those omega-6s are stored in their fats, and now they go into our fats, right? They get stored in our bodies, and they create inflammation and disease. That's what autoimmune disorders are. That's one of the reasons autoimmune disorders thrive is our diets in this country, alongside processed sugars and all the other things we talked about. Oils, seed oils are just absolute garbage for you. Absolutely.
Isn't corn man-made and it's in everything?
Well, before
At the essence?
before the droughts, America had these big droughts. So when we wiped out the bison in the middle of America, in the prairies, the bison were no longer there to fertilize the fields. So their poop wasn't fertilized, so everything turned into a dust bowl. Then the winds picked up, and then they just created like these dust bowls across America. So there was huge droughts. So we had to create genetically modified corn to be able to survive those. That's where so our corn is not like the corns like the Mayan and the Aztec used to eat. It's been highly genetically modified.
And it's in everything.
Yeah. But to make the answer super short, I would just educate people on true financial literacy. Right? The reason we've been indoctrinated by a failed school system here. Now, it wasn't failed for the people that created it. They created it to create workers.
Yeah.
They didn't create school systems to create thinkers and
100%,
entrepreneurs.
100%.
Right? You know what I mean? So like I would change everything. I would say, listen, this is how the new school systems are going to be, where we teach everybody the real information and make sure you get it. We make sure, you know what I mean? And I would want to make it fun too. Like I would make exercise a big part of schools as well, because that is super important. Super important. Most people are like, oh, recess, it's a waste of... No, it's not. The exercise and the movement and the blood flow and all that is so important.
Yeah.
So, and obviously if you can go outside, so you know what I mean? Like, in every single industry, if I literally was like the king of the world tomorrow, I'd be like, okay, clean slate, we're changing everything. And I would change everything to a Web 3.0 instantly, because I would keep all of the people underneath me in check, and I would keep all my citizens in check. And I know it's weird me saying my citizens, because I wouldn't be a king.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I love George Washington so much is because after he won the Revolutionary War, all his constituents were like, "What are you going to do? You're going to be the king?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "I don't want to be a king. We just broke free from that tyranny and that just ridiculousness of the thought that we still need kingdoms, right? And people to control us like this." And so he actually walked away from American politics until he needed to come back. America was already starting to fall apart right after the Revolutionary War. And so he came back and became the president, and then him and Hamilton and Jefferson and everybody. Those guys weren't perfect. They had their flaws, of course. They owned slaves. It's freaking horrific. I hate that about them.
Yeah.
But I love their courage. I love their ingenuity. I love their their genius.
Yeah.
You know, and they weren't scared, man. Like that must have been some of the scariest things. Like, you know, having the most powerful army in the world just coming down, and you know, they probably just wouldn't have hung them. They probably would have tortured them, make an example of them, and then hung them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, those guys had cojones the size of freaking bowling balls, you know?
Yeah.
But, so anyway, so that's what I would do if I was in control of everything, is I would properly mass educate everyone and say, here's the truth. Here's what you've been told, and this is the truth. Live your life based on this. You know what I mean? If you want to thrive. Okay, look, if you don't care about your life and you don't value your own life, then that you can't teach anybody anything. You can't make people change. But if you feed people correct information, adequate information that's accurate, transparent, then hopefully you're planting seeds, they take that and they run with
that
it.
seed in there.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't hit today, but maybe they get a little bit older, their mind develops more, and
Yep.
all of a sudden you're thinking about that time you learned about X, Y, and Z. It's, wait a minute.
They don't want you questioning how stuff is. Nobody wants you question. That's why they don't, like you're saying, you're going to need an informational source to give all these people the right information. Right now, media is controlled by the people who don't want you having this information. So they don't see it. You see dancing.
Yeah.
Unless you seek it out, you know?
100%.
Can you tell us a couple maybe cool experiences you've had dealing with celebrities that art has brought you to?
I wanted to ask, you were just talking about Post Malone earlier.
Uh-huh.
I know there was a piece you did, but I haven't even heard the full story yet. But you know, I know last time I saw you, you were on your way out to the concert or something like that, right?
Yeah, so I got commissioned to do a piece for him, and then a few guys on his team. So I flew those pieces out. I actually shipped them out and then flew out to Austin to meet them. So before, this was so, like, the whole night was a freaking incredible experience. So before the concert, I got to spend like 3 hours with him just hanging out.
I just want to throw it. Describe the piece too, because I think it's so funny that we were just talking about the founding fathers and like.
Oh, for sure,
right?
for sure.
It's funny how that it all just connects.
No,
right?
it does, wild, for sure. So
ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. So there was a few pieces out there, but two of them, one of them was so Posty is a huge patriot. His birthday is July 4th, 1995. Yeah. So like on this piece called America is Bleeding, which is like kind of a rendering of the Declaration of Independence, right? Instead of in Congress, July 4th, 1776, I changed it to like in Post, July 4th, 1995. And it's called America is Bleeding, which is like a nod to his Hollywood is Bleeding, right? But we call it home. So I did his face and all these trippy metallics over the Declaration of Independence, and I have all this like stage blood running off of it and this and that. Well, the guy who commissioned me for the piece is his personal pilot on his jet. So he said, please do me a favor, bring a black paint marker. I want to have Austin, which is Post Malone's real first name. He goes, I want to have Austin sign it in front of me. And I said, yeah, no problem. So right after the concert, Austin walks out and he's in love with the piece, right? And we give him the paint marker and he signs it. And then the craziest thing happened. So when he goes to shake my hand, right, my ring that I'm wearing right here, it cuts his finger, right? And his finger starts pulling up with blood. And he's like, hey, who's wearing a ring? And I told him I was. And he said, oh, I'm bleeding. He goes, I need to go get a Band-Aid. I said, no, bro, come here. And my boy was still holding up the painting with all the fake blood on it. And I was like, Posty, I was like, put your blood on the painting. And he literally was just dabbing it like this right on the painting. And we're like, what? So it's so funny. My boy who owns the painting, it's got his signature and his blood on it. And I was like, bro, that's easily like $100K piece. Easily. Yeah. I mean, if it's like a super Posty fan wanted to pay like $1 million for it, art's worth what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody would be willing to pay a lot of money for that piece.
Yeah.
And this guy, my boy who owns it, he has his daughter. I'm like, bro, give that to her. Like, she's young, you know what I mean? But like, give it to her so one day she can sell it for like, go to college, do whatever she wants, invest it, start a business, help people, whatever. He goes, nah, bro, I'm being buried with this piece. I said, no, bro, don't be buried with the piece. It needs to live on, bro. It needs to live on. Please don't be buried with the piece. So, anyway, it was really funny. But, I thought that was super trippy.
Awesome
like, what are the chances that the artist ring cuts? Posty's one of the biggest musicians in the world right now. Probably not the biggest. I think he's got the most Grammys in history, especially for somebody his age.
He's the most talented in-person singer that I've ever seen in concert. Like hip hop and that type of he's amazing.
That's
him, Juice WRLD, J. Cole. That's like I think pinnacle for me.
Dude, 100%. That's what I was gonna tell you before. So, yes, his lyrics are absolutely ridiculously raw, but his voice, his range, his capabilities to match any genre. Most artists don't start in rap. It's the hardest genre to make it in. Okay. Now he went from rap, the hardest one. Now he's doing rock and country and all these other things because he can. His voice is ridiculous. Yeah. And a real quick story that I didn't get to tell you guys. So before the concert, so that all happened after the concert with the blood and the ring and all that. That was after the concert. Mm-hmm. Before the concert, there was another piece of art I did for him specifically. Okay, and it's called The Gift, and it's because of the gift he gives us, which is just like this unbelievable voice, dude, this energy and this, this just amazingness. And so we're hanging out and like he calls it the pre-party room or whatever, and we're hanging out for like 3 hours. Now, about 2.5, 3 years ago, I developed an allergy to alcohol, so I don't even drink. But I was playing beer pong and hanging out with him and stuff like that, chilling, And we all had our drinks, I had water or whatever. But, we're just hanging out. And then right before he went on stage, I was like, hey, man, I want to show you this piece I did for you. And he was like, yeah. He goes, take it into the next room. And I was like, I don't even know what the next room is. So I'm like, okay. So I go get the piece. It's in a different room. I'm standing in the hallway. And while I'm in the hallway, his manager and his chief of security grab me. And they're like, hey, follow us. And I'm like, okay. They walk me down this long hallway with a room on like a left door only. Like, that's it, though. There's one door to the left. And they open it, they push me in, and they close the door. And I'm like, they didn't come with me. I'm like, I look around and Posty's standing there. It's his dressing room. He's standing there with like his 2 girls who like dress him. So he's got these humongous racks, right? Two big racks, so 4 total lines of just t-shirts and like jerseys and shorts and shit that he wears for all his concerts. And I'm just like, what's up, Posty? Like, this is so, like, the room we were just in was like 30 people. You know what I mean? Like, this is just me and him pretty much. Yeah. And we're talking, and I get to tell him about the Eddie Vedder thing and how raw I think it was crazy you're doing this, because for years I've been calling you the 21st century Eddie Vedder. Now he's telling me about his relationship with Eddie Vedder and how cool they are together and how they chill.
That's
like,
so cool.
Bro. It was so cool. Then, so as I'm unwrapping the piece, he starts singing. And I'm like, oh shit, I get a private concert? And he's like, yeah, without auto-tune. I was like, bro, you don't need auto-tune, bro. He knew it too.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't need auto-tune, bro. His voice is so crazy.
Yeah.
And so I turned the piece, so I showed him the back first, right? And I've been NFTing pieces in my own way for years, right? Every one of my pieces has the back of a real $2 bill. So I keep one half, the other half is embedded on the piece. And the piece I keep is embedded in an Excel spreadsheet. That's serial number, right? So like, there's only one $2 bill in the world, right? Because that serial number differentiates them. So that's how I authenticate pieces, and I have been for years, right? So the $2 bill corresponds with the piece. So in the future, if somebody wants to duplicate a transparent, they might be able to duplicate the art, right? But are you also going to counterfeit a $2 bill? No. And if you do, good luck, right? Secret Service is going to bust your ass, right? And then you also have to know the serial number. So it's like going to be almost impossible for people in the future to try to say this isn't a true transparent, especially when they can call my estate and say, is this the accurate number? Smart. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I show Posty the back and I explain the name and the $2 bill and like I hand sign, artist sign, date, title, number, all that. And then I flip the piece around and he's like freaking out when he sees the piece. And I shine a flashlight on it and he jumps like that because the piece I did for him is 5 layers deep, all different materials. So it took me like 3 months to do his piece. And it's super sick. It's like archival metallic paper, pigment ink. There's resin with multi-flake in there. There's fine art acrylic. There's hand-painted pinstripe. I did all his hair in matte black, and it's absolutely nuts. You can see it on my Instagram. And so anyway, he's looking at it. He's just like looking from the side because you get to see all the depth in it. And he's freaking out. And he's like, bro, you're a legend. And I was like, Posty, I'm like, you're the legend, bro. What are you talking about? I'm the legend, bro. Are you serious? Come on. And he's just like the most down-to-earth, humble, nice dude, super cordial to like his girl, to his staff, to his fans. He is like the epitome of like just a good dude, and I'm just like so happy to see that, you know, because he's my favorite musician. So to find out that he's just like this stellar human being just makes it like 1,000 times cooler. You know, so that I've got to work with guys like I did a piece for Richard Branson, Schwarzenegger. My first pieces ever went to like Pitbull and Dwayne Wade, you know.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I was down here like one of my best friends had season tickets first row for all like the 4 seasons that the Big Four were here. So I got to see like all those Baller Heat games. I was at both championships games, 6 and 7 when we won. Like I was there for like the trophy unveil. Like I was there, bro. Like it was like crazy seeing Bosh, you know, LeBron and Wade during those years, and then like actually making Wade a collector, you know, and getting to talk to him and converse with him. Like Pitbull, super nice guy. Armando, like one of the nicest people for real. DJ Khaled became a collector. You know, so like at DJ Khaled's birthday a couple years ago, I actually got to have a conversation with Swiss Beats, which was like his talk about planting seeds. Yeah. He's been talking about artists getting residual royalty in perpetuity for years.
Really?
Yeah, years before NFTs were even a thing.
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? So he was like, how do we help visual artists receive musical royalty kind of things? You know, so like I got to have a conversation with him and Future, which I wasn't. Like I said, the Molly Percocet thing I wasn't feeling, but you know, but I've got to meet so many amazing people, big time famous athletes, Olympians, I mean, you name it, you know, so I mean, I don't know what the future holds, I don't know who I'm going to be able to work with next, but like, it's been a fun ride so far, and I'm excited for more, you know, so.
Yeah, that's amazing. A lot of cool experiences, man. That's what life's about.
Yeah, for
Meeting
sure.
authentic people, good people, and experiences.
Yeah, man. Enjoy the ride, you know, the journey is where it's at, you know. I always say success is a series of small wins. So it's not like, you know, listen, it's one thing, okay, like let's say I was like, you know, Seneca, or let's say that, you know, let's say I was like somebody who dropped, let's say I was the artist behind the Bored Apes and I just became like worth like a couple $100 million in 6 months. Okay, that's massive success in a short amount of time. Yeah. But that's a very, 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 very small percentage of the population that's going to do that, right? You're talking about 0.00003% of artists that are going to blow up like that, right? Everybody else, enjoy the ride, you know, and be grateful. Like the biggest piece of advice I can actually give for a mental perspective is be grateful for everything that you have, even if it's not everything you want. Because the more grateful you are, the more abundance you attract. I've learned as I've gotten older that the law of attraction is more real than anybody could ever imagine. And I study physics and quantum mechanics, and I understand science and math and how everything's connected, and that just proves that even more so, I think.
Yeah.
You know, so be super grateful. Don't be, you know, I know people that complain all day, every day, and they're like,
oh man,
you don't even want to know the problems they have.
This is paradise. That's South, like the U.S. is paradise to the world. You know,
100%.
Like if you're grateful and you have gratitude, it allows you to open your perspective on the world and see things from other cultures, other places' perspectives. If you don't, you're trapped in this utopian society, or think it's a utopia. So you believe whatever you see and you follow aimlessly, and you don't have those thoughts for yourself because your mind is closed off.
100%.
People put themselves in very precarious situations just to get here. Right?
Very.
I mean,
we're all immigrants. I think your family's Greek, right? My family came from
Italian. We came overseas from Italy.
Italy.
I was dating a Haitian girl. Their family came here, right? Like, people literally will go on these treks, these journeys that maybe they set off. I was on a cruise ship one time, and we wound up picking up people that were on a raft that was like a shell of a car and a bunch of like empty barrels all tied together. It's like, it's like America or bust at that point, right? I mean,
big time. I've seen it too.
So we got to be grateful for the position we're in, and you know, even if you're not in America, you're watching this, like, you've got the capability to be watching this right now. Right?
100%.
I mean, there's always a way to find something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Even if you're on the bus, maybe there's someone that is stuck in bed, sick, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
They don't have a car. Oh no, but. You know, there's always a way to...
100%. There's always somebody envious of your situation, even if you don't know it.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're having the worst day of your life, you just got fired, your girl left you, dog ran away, you know, and, you know, you think you have it bad, you're moseying down the street, there's a guy in the hospital about to die, you know, or in severe pain, who would do anything to trade places with you. Anything. So, I don't know, man. No matter what days, you know, no matter what's going on in my life, I try to be grateful for what is good. And I don't ever focus on the bad, because you focus on the bad, just more bad's going to come. So, you know, it's crazy. So this is nuts, and I've never talked about this publicly, but my family, I come from immigrants as well, but a long time ago. This is nuts. My mom is hardcore into our family lineage. This year, 2022, marks 400 years that my family's been in the United States. Wow. 400 years. So I have I have a Dutch ancestor named Wilfred Wilbert, who came here in like 1622 and came to what was then, I think, Manhasset Island, or it was like the pre-New Amsterdam, or something, you know, right around then. I need to look more into it, but my mom was telling me all about it. She's a diehard. It was like my 12 or 14 ex-grandpa or something. But yeah, my family was in New York City from 1622 to like the 1890s. And then I guess my mom and dad's side, they didn't know each other, of course. They didn't meet until like 1975 in college. But their families, there was like a mass exodus from New York City to Cincinnati, Ohio in the late 1890s. And I guess it was because they were looking for like, I don't know, apparently Cincinnati is like the city of seven hills. It looks kind of like Munich in Germany. So like a lot of people were like, wow, this is beautiful. Like, let's post up here, right? And that's why Cincinnati became such a big place. But yeah, my family was in New York City. Like one of my great-grandfathers owned 40-some acres in what is now Central Park.
Oh, wow.
Like in the 1830s. Like crazy, 400-year history. Yeah, so like another thing, this is pretty fascinating. We were talking about the Revolutionary War. So one of my grandpas in, I think, the late 1770s was responsible for, like, only in the state of Virginia, was George Washington's, like, private security guard, like, was responsible for keeping George Washington alive during the Revolutionary War in the state of Virginia. And also that same grandpa of mine was responsible for, like, housing the Liberty Bell. So, like, the British really wanted our Liberty Bell. They wanted to, like, kill our morale. They wanted to melt it down and make bullets and kill us. So like my mom has told me. Now listen, yeah, right. So like if you think about it though, we actually have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parents and grandparents, like all these people that had to live to let us be alive. So of course there's gonna be one or two like we can cherry pick that are like cool stories.
Yeah.
But these are stories my mom's told me based on her direct like lineage and research and historical documents and this and that. I'm like, that is so crazy,
That's amazing.
So you guys ever heard of the Catawba Indians?
Yeah, I've heard of that. Why have I heard of that?
Out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So the Catawba, one of their, so the gentleman, like the Caucasian gentleman who helped them get their legislation to pass all their casinos and all that in Charlotte, right outside the city, he called me. This was during the pandemic, like March of 2020, and he called me and he goes, "Hey Josh, we knew each other from the CBD industry years ago." And he said, "Hey," he goes, "I don't know if you know this or not, but I have been trying to pass legislation for the Catawba Indians for decades." I go, "No, bro, you never told me that you were involved with the Indians and the casinos and blah, blah, blah." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I don't really talk about it that much. Plus, it's a really hard thing to do, right? I've been doing it for since the 90s. So anyway, he was able to get the legislation passed the Friday before the Monday when the lockdown happened. So he called me and he said, "I want to commission a bunch of work for the Catawba Indians for you to do our work in the new casino." And I said, "I would be honored, bro. Honored to do that." Now, here's the craziest part. I tell my mom about it, right? And she goes, "You got to be kidding me." And I go, "No." She goes, "Did you know your great uncle, like 7X great uncle, was this guy who helped the Catawba Indians like in the 1800s?" And no joke, like she sent me an article about it. And there's a statue in Charlotte of my great uncle cast in bronze in a park in Charlotte with his arm around the Catawba chief Indian. Like there's a statue of them together.
That's
and his name was Thomas Spratt, and like these Spratts continue up until like I've seen United States congressional documents, like House of Representatives, like up until the like 1990s trying to help the Catawba.
Wow.
So I called Jamie back and I'm like, "You're not gonna believe this." I'm like, "Thomas Spratt was like my great uncle." And he goes, "You got to be kidding!" Like it was like, like crazy,
that's
crazy story. So I'll send you guys if you want to add any of the stuff I talked about too.
Definitely.
I can send you guys links and all this stuff. It's crazy though. I'm like, what are the chances, right, that the Catawba asked me to do this? And then I was like related to the guy who helped them become the nation that got preserved, right? Because obviously it's horrific what happened to the Native Americans in this country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did a piece a long time ago where it's like the earth with like an Indian chief and buffalo and eagles, and it represents like what if when the European settlers got here, what if they could have coexisted better with the Native Americans? Can you imagine like the 10 moral biblical commandments merged with like the 10 spiritual commandments and sustainability and life and love? And like, can you imagine how gorgeous this life would be now? It wouldn't just be like this one big like capitalistic, like commercialized, I mean, don't get me wrong, like I said, this is the best we've done so far, but it obviously there's room for growth in every aspect of everything. So again, planting seeds, love one another, be good to each other. Little
compromise here and there.
Yeah.
Everybody takes for granted the land that they live on, right? I mean, the land was a lot different back then. It looked a lot different.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
100%.
it's just businesses and advertising and human stuff.
Yeah. I wear an Indian on my ring. It's a 1929 U.S. Indian gold coin.
Oh, that's cool.
And but I use it as it's a gift from my father. I use it as a gratitude reminder, right? 1929 was the year of the stock market crash. So imagine with that quarter ounce of gold. It's only worth $400 or $500 today. But that that in 1929 would have fed a family of 4 for 6 months, or put roof
crazy.
shelves, and I wear it casually on my finger like it's no big deal. So I use it. I look at it every single day, and I'm like grateful for everything that I have, and that I'm not in a situation like they were then and or previous. So I don't know. These are just my perspectives that I've gathered over almost 41 years of life, and I like sharing them to help people grow and and not be so, I don't know, molded to what we're told to believe and be,
Yeah.
I don't like division. I think a lot of, I know division's real, but I think a lot of it's staged. I think a lot of it's,
Correct.
red team versus blue team,
Correct.
white versus black, rich versus poor, atheist versus religious. Like, we all can get along in such a cohesive way, like, if people just quit telling us not to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
So.
Sad. Thank you for sharing your perspectives on everything. We really, this is an awesome conversation. I learned a lot myself, and I'm sure a lot of people are really going to take away a lot of important things about life, their career, opportunity, hopefully. So I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate
Definitely. Yeah, no, always love interacting with you. The energy and like the, it's great. Like, you bring so many different angles in, right? And some people are just so laser focused on what they've got going on. And I love that you're always reading and expanding your own knowledge base and, tackling problems from multiple angles. So
Thanks, bro.
Thanks
Definitely.
for coming on. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I really love humans, and I want us to continue to evolve in the right direction, not the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying everything I believe is right, but I'm saying from what I've gathered, I think it's a pretty decent way to start,
Yep.
Start from a place of humility, humbleness, gratitude, just be super grateful, and be curious, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like you said, nobody wants you to question anything anymore. You should. If people don't want you to question something, they're probably hiding something.
Mm-hmm. You had a lot of the C's I picked up over the scent of the discussion. Creativity, you said, consistency, confidence in your work, curiosity.
Sure.
Let's make up a fifth one because I said 5. One more, a C word. That's
Creativeness.
I already said creativity.
Oh, you said creativity, yeah. Not bad.
All right, I got a good C for you. Cooperation.
Nice.
There we go. I like that one.
Nice.
Yeah. We got to cooperate with each other.
Build
Collaboration,
together.
same
Build
thing.
together.
Collaborate, you build with each other.
Humans have not evolved to where we are
Nope.
without working together.
Yep.
Period. So we have to learn how to cooperate.
Nice.
That's so. Yeah, those the 5 C's. Let's put them on the screen.
I'll put it on the
For the
we got a
viewers.
list. All right.
There you go.
Perfect. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for today's episode with Transparent, and we'll see you next week.